Good morning, students, and welcome to another episode of our program Aprender e Estudar em Casa. As always, my name is Edson Horta, and I'm your English teacher for the 9th grade. Remember, students, we are dealing with a pandemic situation, so it's very important for you to follow the 3 rules. Practice social distancing, wear your masks, and wash your hands always. Yes, students, like we usually do in our classes, we are going to start with the correction of the homework. Now, remember that in our previous class, you had 2 assignments to do, 2 homeworks. In the first one, you had to separate the words or the expressions into a healthy and unhealthy lifestyle or habit. And your second homework was to organize sentences where you used may or will. All right? And remember that your second homework, you had to do sentences and show it to your teacher in school. Let's correct our first homework. The correction of the homework, number 1, you had a group of words or expressions that represented healthy and unhealthy habits. Now, the healthy ones were a healthy diet, play sports, good hygiene, and drink water. Very good. Now, the unhealthy ones were eat junk food, use drugs, drink alcohol, and stay up late on the phone. Well, students, that was the first homework, to divide the group of words into healthy and unhealthy habits. Now, the second homework, remember, you had to make sentences using will, may, or might. All right? Now, let's do a quick review of what we learned in our previous class. Let's go. In our previous class, we saw that we use will when we are talking about future possibilities. And we also use will when we are 100% sure of what is going to happen in the future. Now, on the other hand, we use may and might when we are not so sure. Remember, we are 50% sure, and we use may in an informal situation and might in a formal situation. So those were the main differences of when we use will and when we use may and might. And remember that for a formal and informal situation, we use may and might, all right? Now, formal situation is when you talk to someone that is older than you, to someone that you don't know, all right? Or someone like a doctor, your teacher. No, you need to use formal language. Informal language is when you talk with your classmates, with your father, with your mother, with your cousins, all right, with your neighbors, okay? Now, remember to do this homework and show it to your teacher at school. Now, let's go to our class today. What is the topic of today's lesson? In today's lesson, we are going to talk about the conditionals, all right? We are going to study the conditionals like you have it here on the board. So in today's lesson, you will learn to talk about real conditions using the zero and first conditionals. As always, you have the sources where you can go to learn this lesson, or if you have any doubts, to clear them, all right? So yes, students, today we're going to talk about real conditions using the zero and the first conditionals, okay? But before we start our lesson, I would like to ask you a couple of questions, okay? What happens if you eat a lot of junk food? Now remember that junk food is something that is not healthy for you. It's unhealthy. It's bad for you. So what happens when you eat a lot? Now, students, can you answer me this question? What happens when you eat a lot of junk food? All right? Yes, you get sick, you become overweight, and you become unhealthy. Very good. So that's what happens when you eat a lot of junk food. Now, let me ask you another question. What happens when you stay up late? Now, as you can see in the picture, there is a boy and it's already 3 a.m. in the morning and he's on his phone. He didn't go to sleep yet. So what happens when you stay up late, like you have in the picture with the boy? If it's 3 a.m. in the morning, you're still up on your phone. What happens? Yes, you might be late for school. You see, I used might there. You might be late for school. You will be sleepy, you will be tired, and that's not good for your health. Now, students, what I wanted to show you with these questions is that there is a condition and there is a result. If you do this, if you eat a lot of junk food, you will become unhealthy. You will be overweight. It is bad for your health. On the same note, if you stay up late, you will be tired, you will be late for school. So these are the conditions and the results. But we have not finished yet. Let's see some more examples. Now, what happens when you eat healthy food? Remember that healthy food is the food that is good for you, it's good for your health. Yes, students, can you answer that question? What happens when you eat healthy food? Very good. When you eat healthy food, you don't become overweight, you're always healthy, and it's good for you in general, all right? Different from junk food, okay? Now let's see the other question. What happens when you have a healthy lifestyle? What happens when you have a healthy lifestyle? Well, students, can you answer that question? What happens when you have a healthy lifestyle? When you play sports, when you go to bed early, when you have good hygiene? Very good. When you do all this, you are always healthy, you don't get sick often, and you don't need to go to the doctor all the time. So remember, students, these are the conditions and the results. When you have a healthy diet, you are not overweight, right? And in general, your health is very good. And when you have a healthy lifestyle, you play sports, you go to bed early, you have good hygiene, you don't need to go to the doctor all the time. So that was the warm-up for our lesson today, the conditionals. Now, let's jump onto the lesson. So this is our lesson, the conditional. There are different types of conditionals. We have the zero, the first, the second, and the third. We use the conditional to show the result of a certain action. For example, if I don't have money, I can't buy food. Now, students, in the first part of the sentence, we have the condition, don't have money. And in the second part of the sentence, we have the result. Now, if I don't have money, this is the condition. What is going to be the result? Exactly. Very good. I can't buy food. Now, the conditional is made up of the if clause, that is the condition that represents the condition, and the main clause that represents the result. All right, students, so that was a brief introduction on the conditionals. But in this lesson, we are going to focus on the zero and the first conditionals. Now, let's learn when you can use the zero conditional and the first conditional, with some examples, of course. Let's start with the zero conditional. Let's go. Now, the zero conditional is generally used when we talk about something that is always true. For example, if you don't water plants regularly, they die. Yes, students, we usually use the zero conditional when we talk about something that is always true. Now, plants are living beings, and they need water to survive. If you don't water the plants, what is going to happen? Very well, they are going to die, all right? Let's continue. We also use the zero conditional when we talk about scientific facts. For example, if you heat water at 100 degrees, it boils. Now, students, the second use of the zero conditional is when we talk about something that is scientific, something that science has proven to be correct. Now, if you heat water, like you have in the picture over there, if you put water on top of fire, what happens? Yes, after a couple of minutes, it's going to boil. And this always happens, no matter what It always happens. So when you talk about scientific facts, something that science has proven to be correct, we use the zero conditional. All right? Let's see some examples and the proper use of the zero conditional. Let's go. Now, with the structure of the zero conditional, what do we have? First, we need the if clause to show us the condition, all right? If. And after if, we have the present simple. So the verb has to be conjugated in the present simple. So if plus present simple plus present simple again. Now, in the main clause that shows you the result, the verb also has to be in the present simple. Now, remember, if clause shows you the condition with the verb in the present simple, and then the main clause, which is the result, also shows you the verb in the present simple. Yes, students, that was the structure of the zero conditional. But let's see how we use this structure, if plus present simple with an example. All right? The sentence that you have here is going to show you how we use the zero conditional. Let's take a look. Now, the sentence that you have as an example is the following. If we go out in the rain, what is going to happen? We will get wet. Now remember, students, the if clause is the condition. If I go out in the rain, or if we go out in the rain. And what is going to happen if we go out in the rain? We will get wet. Now take note that the verb go in the first clause is in the present simple, and the verb get in the main clause, or the result, is also used in the present simple. So students, that was the structure of the zero conditional. And remember, if we go out in the rain, what is going to happen? Yes, we will get wet. So if you don't want to get wet, like in the image, you have to use an umbrella, all right? Now that was how we use the zero conditional and how we have its structure. Now let's move on to the first conditional. Let's go. Now, with the first conditional, we usually express something that will probably happen in the future. For example, if you stay up late, you will be late for school. Now, students, in contrast to what happens with the zero conditional, remember, we use the zero conditional when we talk about something that is always true or scientific facts. With the first conditional, we talk about something that will probably happen in the future. Remember, we are not sure, all right? So, look at the example. If you stay up late, you will be late for school. Yes, students, so remember, we use the first conditional when we talk about something that will probably happen in the future, all right? Remember that we have a conditional, if you stay up late, and then we have the result, okay? What happens when you stay up late? Exactly, you will be late for school, you are tired, and remember, that's not healthy for you, all right? Now that we have seen how we use the first conditional and one example, let's take a look at its structure. Now, the structure of the first conditional is, again, we have if, all right, in the beginning, then we have the present simple, but different from the zero conditional, we don't have the present simple. In the next one, we have will. So we have the if clause that shows us the condition. The verb has to be in the present simple, but in the main clause or the result, we don't have the present simple, but we have will. Yes, students, now as you can see from the structure and from how we use the zero and the first conditionals, they are not the same, they are different, all right? We use the zero conditional when we talk about something that is true, scientific facts, and we have a different structure from the first conditional that we use when we talk about something that will probably happen in the future. The structure is also different. You have always the if clause. This shows you the condition, and then you have the main clause with the result. But with the first conditional, you have if plus the verb in the present plus will. All right? Let's take a look at the example. Now, what is the example? If I go for dinner, I will eat a lot of junk food. Now, students, the first clause, the if clause, remember, is the condition, if I go for dinner. And what is going to be the result? I will eat a lot of junk food. Well, students, those were the main differences and the ways that we use the zero and the first conditional. All right? But before we follow with some practice, exactly some exercise, let's take a look at something that you need to be very careful with. All right? Let's take a look. Yes, students, so what do you need to be careful of, or what do you need to pay attention? Sometimes you will have the result of the conditionals, both zero and first, in the negative. So what happens when this happens? You will have to join will plus not. Remember that not shows you the negative. Now, the result of when you join will plus not, it's going to be will not, or it's going to be won't. Let's take a look at the example. If we don't see each other tomorrow, we will not or won't see each other next week. Now, what you have with this example is that if we don't see each other tomorrow is the if clause, and we will not or won't see each other next week is going to be the result. Now, remember that you can use will not or you can use won't. They are both correct. Yes, students, now that I've shown you what you need to pay attention to when you have will plus not, let's do some practice. It's time for our exercise. Well, students, we are back, and now it's time to do some practical exercise on what we learned today, the zero and the first conditional. Now, let's see what exercise you have to do today. Let's take a look. Now, your exercise is the following. Read the following sentences and say which ones that are zero or first conditional. Sentence number 1. If the temperature is below 0 Celsius, water freezes. Sentence number 2. If we have a healthy diet, we will have a healthy lifestyle. Sentence number 3. If you heat ice, it melts. Sentence number 4. If you don't eat too much sweets, you will not get sick. Sentence number 5. If it rains later on, I won't go to the party. And sentence number 6. If you go to the gym and eat fruits and vegetables, you lose weight. Very well, students. Those were the 6 sentences that you need to read, and you need to identify which ones are the zero and which ones are the first conditionals. Let's go. All right, students, now it's time for our correction. All right, did you do it correctly? Remember, did you remember which one are the first and which one are the zero conditionals? I'm sure you did fine, and as always, it's time for the correction. All right, let's go. So, sentence number 1, if temperature is below 0 Celsius, water freezes. Is it zero or the first conditional? Yes, it is the zero conditional because it's a scientific fact. Sentence number 2, if we have a healthy diet, we will have a healthy lifestyle. Very good, it is the first conditional because it's something that will probably happen. Sentence number 3, if you heat ice, it melts. Very good, it's the zero conditional because it is also a scientific fact and something that is always true. Sentence number 4, if you don't eat too much sweets, you will not get sick. Correct, once again, here we have the first conditional. Sentence number 5, if it rains later on, I won't go to the party. Very well, students, we have once again the first conditional in sentence number 5. And in the last sentence, number 6, if you go to the gym and eat fruits and vegetables, you lose weight. Exactly, this is the zero conditional because it's something that is true. If you go to the gym, eat fruits, have a healthy lifestyle, you will definitely lose weight. It's something that is always true. And those were the sentences that you needed to complete with the zero or the first conditional, students. All right, and as always, you did a wonderful job. Okay, now let's continue with some homework. Now, students, like we usually have in our classes, you always have a homework at the end of the lesson. Now, for today's homework, what is it that you have to do? Let's take a look. Now, for your homework, you need to complete the sentences with the zero or first conditional. Sentence number 1, if we, blank space, we, blank space, there in time. You have to complete the first sentence with hurry and get. Sentence number 2, if you, blank space, water and electricity, you, blank space, a shock. You have to complete it with not, so be careful. You have not, this shows you this sentence is in the negative. Not, mix, not, get. These are the two that you have to complete in sentence number 2. And remember, they are in the negative. Sentence number 3, if he, blank space, hard, he, blank space, the exams. And you have to complete sentence number 3 with study and pass. Sentence number 4, if the weather, blank space, nice, we, blank space, for a picnic tomorrow. Now in sentence number 4, you have to complete with not, stay and not go. And once again, I remind you that not is a sign of the negative. Sentence number 5, if it, blank space, very cold, the river, blank space. Now in sentence number 5, you have to complete with be and freeze. Last sentence, number 6, if the baby, blank space, a boy, I, blank space, him, Paulo. And you have to complete it with be and call. Well, students, those were the sentences that you needed to complete with the zero and the first conditional. Remember that you have to review the lesson when we use the zero and when we use the first conditional in order for you to do your homeworks correctly. But since you are very good students, I'm sure you will do just fine. All right? Now, before we end our lesson, let's take a look at the review. Well, students, it's time for our review. Let's take a look at what we learned today. So today we talked about the conditionals, and more specifically, the zero and the first conditional. Let's take a look at what we learned. Now, in today's lesson, we talked about conditionals, and we also saw that there are different types of conditionals, zero, first, second, and third. But today we learn about the zero and the first conditional. We also saw that we use the conditionals to show the result of a certain action. You have a condition, and then you have the result. Now, we have the two types of conditionals that we learned today, the zero conditional. And the structure of the zero conditional is if plus the present plus the present. Now remember, the present means the present simple. When we talk about the zero conditional, we talk about something that is 100% sure that will always happen. Remember, something that is true or scientific facts. Now, the first conditional, we have a different structure. We have if plus the verb in the present plus will. And different from the zero conditional, we use the first conditional to talk about something that will probably happen, all right? It's not scientific fact, it's not something that is always true, it will probably happen. Well, students, that was the review of today's lesson, the zero and the first conditionals. Well, students, that was another episode of our program Aprender e Estudar em Casa. As always, my name is Edson Horta, and I'm your teacher for your English classes of the 9th grade. So I will see you next class, and stay safe.